Hank Williams Jr., the untamed cowboy, the living legend who makes all of Nashville tremble and bow in awe. As the only son of the iconic Hank Williams, he not only stepped out from his father's massive shadow, but built his own musical empire with 54 studio albums, dozens of chart-topping hits, and 4 Entertainer of the Year titles to his name. But along with the spotlight came a life steeped in controversy, nights drowned in whiskey clouds of smoke thick as fog, and a string of scandals that once shook all of Tennessee. Yet when asked about that lifestyle, Hank merely smirked and said, "I ain't no preacher. I'm Southern. I drink, I smoke, I sing, and that's exactly how I live." Today, with an estimated net worth of over $45 million, Hank has withdrawn to his Springville ranch, a 30-acre estate in Tennessee, where a shimmering lake hides beneath tall pines and a silent redwood lodge stands like a sentinel guarding dark secrets. Locals whisper of a mysterious barley field, the source of wild nights and moonlit parties with young, beautiful women who come and go like shadows. So, what really lies behind that old wooden gate? What is Hank Williams Jr.'s life truly like now beyond the glare of the stage lights? Hank Williams Jr., born Randall. Hank Williams in 1949 in Shreveport, Louisiana, inherited the bloodline of a country music legend. From childhood, he lived under the enormous shadow of a father that America worshipped as an icon. Tragedy struck like a blade when his father died suddenly in 1953 at the age of 29 after a long night lost in whiskey pills and sedatives. The press called it the death of a fallen genius, but for young Hank Jr., it was the beginning of an emptiness nothing could ever fill. That pain clung to him like a shadow, and as he grew older, he drifted down a similar path: alcohol, late-night parties, and smoke-filled rooms. His father's legacy wasn't just music, it was also a curse that Hank Jr. would wrestle with for the rest of his life. Without a father's presence, his mother put him on stage early, both to honor the man she had lost and to keep her son close to the legacy the nation adored. By the age of 8, he had already learned to smile beneath the spotlight. His childhood was spent on endless tour buses, sleeping backstage and practicing songs from his father's old recordings. That loss carved deep marks into his soul, becoming the emotional current that would run through all his music. In 1964, at just 15 years old, Hank Williams Jr. recorded Long Gone Lonesome Blues. The song quickly drew attention, paving the way for the boy to carry on the torch of the legendary Hank Sr. Throughout the 1960s, he released multiple tribute albums, Ballads of the Hills and Plains Blues, My Name songs, My Father Left Me. Yet as he matured, Hank Jr. began to feel imprisoned by the weight of that legacy. From that frustration grew his burning desire to find his own voice, not as a replica of the past, but as a pioneer of a new chapter in American country music. By the early 1970s, Hank Williams Jr. embarked on a relentless journey of experimentation. Albums like After You Pride's Not Hard to Swallow and Hank Williams Jr. and Friends marked a daring transformation, a fusion of country rock blues and Southern soul. His music became rawer, grittier, and more alive than ever before. Behind those fiery melodies, however, another kind of storm was quietly brewing. The endless touring, the crushing weight of fame, and the loneliness that came with it slowly pulled Hank Jr. into a familiar spiral: strong whiskey painkillers and nights that bled into dawn. In 1974, when drugs and alcohol began to push him dangerously close to his father's path, Williams left Nashville and moved to Alabama, where he would change the course of both his life and his music. A year later, he started recording albums that reflected his own tastes and beliefs. It was then that he introduced his signature outlaw, sound a raw blend of blues rock and country that came to define his career, first heard on the album Hank Williams Jr. and Friends. In 1975, while climbing Beech Mountain in Montana, Hank fell from a cliff nearly 500 feet high. His skull was shattered, his face crushed, and he was almost killed on the spot. Doctors had to stitch more than 150 sutures and rebuild his face with metal. There were nights when he could not recognize the man in the mirror. His face disfigured, his voice hoarse, and despair creeping through every breath. Yet only a few months later, Hank returned to the stage with a steel-plated face, a rougher voice, and eyes that burned fiercer than ever. From that moment on, he wore dark glasses and a wide-brimmed hat, not just to hide the scars, but to make a statement: I died once. Now I sing for what's left of my life. The 1980s marked the golden era of Hank Williams Jr.'s career. For more than a decade, he lived between the recording studio and the stage, producing a string of classic albums, including Whiskey Bent and Hellbound: The Pressure Is On, Major Moves, and Man of Steel. While Nashville's sound grew increasingly polished and commercial, Hank Jr. took a different path, offering raw, instinctive music charged with Southern energy and rebellion. In 1982, 9 of his albums appeared simultaneously on the Billboard Top Country Albums chart, an achievement never seen before. Hits like A Country Boy Can Survive and Born to Boogie became anthems of freedom and Southern pride. During the same period, Hank Jr. deeply moved audiences by duetting with his late father in There's a Tear in My Beer. Through groundbreaking electronic voice mixing, he reunited 2 generations of the Williams family in a timeless ballad. The music video, crafted from archival footage, showed father and son standing together on stage, a moment that brought millions of Americans to tears. The song's success earned Hank back-to-back CMA Entertainer of the Year awards in 1987 and 1988, along with 3 consecutive ACM Entertainer of the Year honors, cementing his status as one of country music's enduring icons. Through the 1990s and 2000s, even as the outlaw country wave receded, Hank maintained his momentum with albums such as Lone Wolf Pure Hank 127 Rose Avenue and Old School New Rules. His single Red, White, and Pink Slip Blues climbed the charts, proving his lasting appeal. Meanwhile, his song All My Rowdy Friends Are Coming Over Tonight was chosen as the opening theme for ESPN's Monday Night Football, making his gravelly Southern voice a fixture on American television for over 2 decades. And in 2020, after more than half a century of music, Hank Williams Jr. was officially inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, a fitting tribute to a man who helped define the soul of America through his sound. But behind the glittering lights of fame lay another Nashville, a darker one filled with whiskey smoke and nights that never seemed to end. In that world, Hank Williams Jr. reigned as the ringleader of every wild escapade. By the mid-1980s, Hank had become the unspoken king of Nashville, defiant, magnetic, and dangerous. He spent money like fire, drank whiskey like water, and turned every night into a party with no finish line. When the guitars roared, rules ceased to exist. Some nights, he smashed a bottle on the floor and sang over the spreading whiskey. On others, hotel suites turned into makeshift casinos where money music and desire tangled into chaos. People used to say, if one night passes in Nashville without Hank's raspy laugh echoing through the streets, then it must be raining. He tore down Broadway on his gleaming black Harley leather jacket flying, followed by a convoy of friends, the infamous Southern Outlaws. Wherever they went, Nashville stayed awake. Once a reporter spotted Hank stumbling out of the Bluebird Cafe near dawn. Whiskey glass in hand, cowboy hat pulled low. When the cameras flashed, he simply grinned and said, "I ain't drunk. The music just ain't over yet." The line instantly became legend, a declaration for an entire generation that lived fast, sang hard, and feared nothing. Few people know that behind those dazzling stage lights lies a world shrouded in smoke, a place where whiskey mixed with sedatives and illicit substances kept him standing through endless tours. Hank turned recording studios into saloons and stages into emotional battlegrounds. Many nights the sessions would halt because he was too drunk to sing yet. By morning, his voice would blaze with a fire as if the night before had never happened. The press called him the Cowboy of Chaos. He burned through tens of thousands of dollars on top-shelf liquor, roaring motorcycles, and private parties with young models. When asked about his reckless lifestyle, Hank only smirked. "I ain't no preacher. I'm Southern. I drink, I smoke, I sing, and that's exactly how I live." But whiskey and music were only the surface of the empire known as Hank Williams Jr. Behind those wild nights was a life of near-royal luxury. His estates and holdings stretched as far as the horizon, with lavish retreats scattered across the United States from Tennessee to Montana and down to sun-soaked Alabama. From the pine-covered hills of Tennessee to the snowy ridges of Montana, Hank ruled his private kingdom. In the morning, he might eat breakfast amid the mist of his Springville pines. By noon, he'd take off in his private jet to hunt elk in the mountains. And at night, he'd raise a glass of bourbon by his private lake where moonlight slid across the vast glass walls of his redwood lodge. Each property was a world unto itself, featuring saltwater pools, glowing bourbon cellars, and secret underground gun rooms. And among all these far-flung retreats, there was one place he called the heart of the empire, his 33-acre Maine ranch in Springville. Purchased in 1998 for around $5 million, the Springville estate of Hank Williams Jr. lies hidden among Tennessee's rolling green hills, completely cut off from the outside world. The main house spans over 11,000 square feet, with deep brown shingles, white colonial columns, and a curved iron gate guarded by ancient oak trees. At night, the scent of bourbon mingles with burning wood, and faint music drifts through the air, as if the house itself were whispering the secrets of its cowboy owner. The ranch includes a secure 14-foot gun room, a heavy-duty power generator, and twin garages built for his rare car collection. Each morning, Hank can often be found sitting on the hand-laid stone porch, sipping tea as the first light glimmers over the Tennessee waters, an image of calm in a life that rarely knew peace. And yet in Springville, nothing is as serene as it seems. Everyone knows Hank Williams Jr. invested in Southern whiskey brands, but few realize that behind the sprawling meadows and golden light of his 30-acre paradise lies a restricted zone fenced with barbed wire and guarded by security cameras around the clock. At dawn, when fog still clings to the grass, neighbors often spot Hank walking silently along the back fields of his ranch. His worn leather boots are caked in mud as he bends down to inspect the young barley shoots. His hand brushing the golden grains, eyes sharp and calculating as if measuring something more precious than gold. Locals whisper that he not only handpicks his own crop, but has secretly hired a team of discreet workers from Kentucky, quiet men in low-brimmed caps who appear only at dusk and vanish before sunrise. They work within the fenced-off land where bright yellow lights glow through the night and the thick scent of roasted grain hangs heavy in the air. Anyone who's ever stood near a distillery recognizes that smell. It's the breath of fine whiskey, the dark amber liquid Hank seems to stake his name and fortune on. No one dares ask directly, but rumors ripple through the dim bars of Springville. One old truck driver swore he saw the workers harvesting barley under the moonlight, loading heavy sacks into unmarked trucks that rolled out past midnight. "They take it to distilleries in Nashville," he muttered, gripping his glass. "That grain turns into whiskey so fine folks pay thousands just to own a bottle with Hank's mark on it." No one truly knows what those trucks carry or who runs the whole operation. But every time the night wind carries the scent of roasted grain across the hills, people whisper that somewhere in the darkness, whiskey is still being made by the cowboy who never learned how to stop. And even now, Hank Williams Jr. still throws his infamous all-night whiskey parties, wild gatherings fit only for those bold enough to live outside the law. When the entire town of Springville drifts into sleep, the lights from the Redwood Lodge by the lake come alive again, glowing through the curtains like a flickering flame. Shadows move behind the glass, casting trembling reflections across the water. From a distance, you can hear faint country music mingling with the laughter of women, not loud, but enough to stir the valley awake. Sleek sports cars glide quietly through the gates and disappear behind the pines, leaving behind the scent of gasoline perfume and liquor smoke, a mix found only in Springville, and only Hank could create it. One of the staff once recalled a night when he opened the door and saw Hank sitting in the middle of the room, the golden light spilling across his sunburned face, a glass of whiskey in his hand, head slightly bowed, smiling as if listening to a song only he could hear. Around him, women with curled hair and glittering dresses laughed beside toppled bottles, the firelight bouncing off animal hides on the wall, and the oak floor trembling in rhythm with the guitar's chords. No one knew when those parties ever ended, only that by morning, when mist settled over the lake, the lodge doors stayed closed. The curtains swayed softly and on the table. A few glasses of bourbon still shimmered, as if the night had refused to leave. Far north of Tennessee, hundreds of miles away, Hank Williams Jr. owned another vast property, a 400-acre ranch in Wisdom, Montana, nestled in the remote Big Hole Valley. It was here nearly half a century ago that he almost lost his life in a tragic mountain climbing accident. For Hank, Montana was more than land. It was a promise to himself, a place to slow down, to remember, and to sing for no one but his own soul. From afar, the ranch unfolds like a scene from an old Western painting. Endless grasslands, golden aspen groves in autumn, and 6 still ponds reflecting the blue of the open sky. More than 700 cattle roam freely across fields, fed by the winding Moose Creek. At the center stands a rustic white farmhouse of over 2,600 square feet, with red-tiled roofing and wraparound wooden porches. Inside, the morning light filters through broad windows, dancing on honey-colored pine ceilings and glowing walls. The living room features a natural stone fireplace, and the bedrooms open to the prairie where deer often wander through the dawn fog. Hank visits Montana each spring and early autumn when the snow melts and the meadows turn gold. It's the season when he leaves Tennessee, driving thousands of miles back to what he calls the land of silence. There he turns off his phone, shuts out the world, and spends his days walking through the fields or sitting by the lake with a fishing rod, listening to the wind and the distant lowing of cattle. But beyond land and music, Hank Williams Jr. has another passion, one that matches his wild spirit, the world of engines, steel, and speed. His car collection, valued at roughly $3 million, stands as proof of that lifelong obsession. The first and the most treasured piece in his collection is a 1969 Cadillac Coupe de Ville, an icon of American luxury from the golden 1960s. Its long frame, deep black-blue paint gleaming like a mirror, and a 472 cubic inch V8 engine delivering nearly 375 horsepower make it glide as smooth as a bass note in a slow country song. The interior is wrapped in soft leather with a wood grain dashboard and chrome trim catching Tennessee sunlight. According to Hegarty, a perfectly preserved Coupe de Ville from 1969 can fetch up to $110,000, and Hank's car remains nearly untouched. Every time he sits behind the wheel, he plays one of his father's old vinyl records, letting that familiar voice echo through the cabin, a private ritual few have ever witnessed. Parked beside it is a 1950 Cadillac limousine, a rare model once reserved for movie stars and statesmen. Its ivory paint gleams, the chrome details shine after more than half a century, and its 331 cubic inch V8, though modest at 160 horsepower, runs smooth and silent. Inside, light brown leather seats, velvet headliners, and a glass partition offer complete privacy between the driver and passenger. Only a few dozen of these limousines remain in operation across the United States, with pristine examples exceeding $150,000 in value. For Hank, the car symbolizes a bygone era, when people drove slowly to savor the scenery and talk to the person beside them. But Hank's passion isn't limited to luxury. One corner of his garage is reserved for a 1958 Chevrolet Apache, the quintessential American farmer's truck. Its faded blue paint and scratched wooden bed tell stories of work and dust. Powered by a 283 cubic inch V8 engine, it's just strong enough to haul a trailer full of hay. This is the truck Hank drives whenever he's in Montana, where, as he once said, no sound is sweeter than its engine in the morning fog. The bed still bears marks from hauling cattle, and he's never repaired them, insisting it ain't beautiful till it's got a little dirt. Collectors now pay between $60,000 and $80,000 for well-kept Apache models. But for Hank, its worth isn't in money, it's in memory. If the Cadillac stands for elegance and the Apache for hard work, then the 1969 Plymouth GTX is his declaration of speed. The legendary muscle car, powered by the famed Ford 26 Hemi engine, is pure American power incarnate. Every time Hank presses the pedal, the engine roars like thunder, and for a fleeting moment that youthful fire returns to his eyes, reckless, bold, and utterly free. An original GTX can command over $190,000 at international auctions, and Hank's car, meticulously preserved, is among the rare few still in existence. He once took it on tour, parked beside his instrument truck, a defiant symbol that no matter his age, he would always be the Southern boy who loved the freedom of the open road. Hank's love for engines doesn't stop at four wheels. He also owns a collection of vintage Harley-Davidson's heavy machines that rumble like thunder, their exhaust smoke mingling with the wind. He once said, "The sound of a Harley is the same as a Fender electric guitar on the highway." Every summer, he and a close group of old Southern musician friends hit the open road, stopping at roadside bars to drink beer and play spontaneous sets. They call it their no-audience tour, a journey meant purely to relive the wild freedom of youth when music was still synonymous with life itself. Beyond the garage filled with steel and engine growls, Hank Williams Jr.'s wealth stretches far beyond metal. It lives in land, in music, and in the powerful brand that bears his name. According to reputable financial outlets such as Celebrity Net Worth and Wealthy Gorilla, Hank Williams Jr.'s total net worth is estimated at around $45 million, an impressive figure for a country artist who began his career back in the 1960s. The bulk of his income still comes from music, the foundation of his career for over half a century. Hank has released more than 35 studio albums with 21 certified gold and several achieving platinum status. Revenue from record sales, broadcast royalties, and especially streaming platforms continues to generate steady earnings. During his golden era of the 1980s and 1990s alone, he sold over 20 million albums, securing his place among the highest-selling country artists of all time. In addition to record sales, live tours remain a massive source of profit. Known for his electrifying performances and fiercely loyal fan base, Hank's concerts often sell out within hours. In 2012, his Taking Back the Country tour grossed over $10 million, while several earlier tours reportedly doubled that amount. At his peak, he earned between $250,000 and $500,000 per show, not including revenue from merchandise, special recordings, and limited edition releases. Another major income stream comes from television rights and advertising. His hit song, "All My Rowdy Friends Are Coming Over Tonight," served as the opening theme for ESPN's Monday Night Football for more than 2 decades, earning him millions in royalties each year. Although the deal was briefly suspended in 2011, the song remains one of the most profitable and enduring commercial ventures of his career. Beyond broadcasting, Hank also earns substantial income from licensing his music for films commercials and branded collaborations under his lifelong nickname, Bocephus. Occasionally, he partners with automobile companies, leather brands, and Southern-style product lines to release limited edition collections inspired by classic cowboy culture. These ventures, though rarely publicized, bring in millions annually, further proof that Hank Williams Jr. is not only a country music legend, but also a sharp, fearless businessman who turned his persona into a lasting empire. Hank Williams Jr. isn't just a musician, he's also a shrewd real estate investor. Over the years, he's bought, sold, and developed vast tracts of land across Tennessee and Montana. His Springville home was once listed for nearly $8 million, while his sprawling 400-acre Montana ranch is valued at over $10 million thanks to its prime location and exclusive natural water rights. Beyond property, he has invested in stocks, whiskey brands, and small-scale agricultural ventures projects driven more by passion than by profit. Amid this impressive fortune, Hank Williams Jr. has always set aside a significant portion for charity. He rarely talks about it, yet his presence is felt throughout numerous humanitarian efforts, especially those focused on children, people with disabilities, and military veterans. Since the 1980s, Hank has worked closely with St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, which provides treatment for children battling cancer and other life-threatening illnesses. He often appeared at fundraising events, performing without pay and donating quietly to help sustain the hospital's mission. One doctor recalled that Hank always arrived simply dressed, taking time to speak with each child and refusing cameras. He once said, "If my music makes grown-ups happy, then helping kids get better is the gift I owe life." In addition to medical support, Hank has long been a champion of the Paralympics, the global movement empowering athletes with disabilities. He believes that both music and sports share the power to heal, to remind people of their worth. He's personally sponsored equipment for local training centers and participated in awareness campaigns for disabled communities. Though he's never called himself a social activist, Hank quietly fulfills that role in his own way, with a check a song or simply showing up when it matters most. That same spirit of generosity extended beyond music after Hurricane Katrina devastated the American South in 2005. Hank was among the first artists to donate and take action, personally contributing $125,000 to relief efforts in Mississippi, performing at benefit concerts, and rallying fellow musicians to join in. To him, it wasn't just civic duty, it was a way to repay the South, the land that had shaped his music and his soul. "The South taught me how to sing," he said. "Now it's my turn to give back." His compassion and patriotism earned him the Patriot Award from Operation Troop Aid, recognizing his ongoing contributions to the U.S. military. He frequently performed free concerts at military bases, visited soldiers, and donated to veteran support funds. During one fundraising night at the Country Music Hall of Fame, he helped raise more than $75,000 to preserve the Williams family's musical heritage. He also partnered with the South Dakota Cattlemen's Foundation, whose events provide beef to families in need, a simple, heartfelt act rooted in Southern kindness. Yet, like every great artist, Hank Williams Jr.'s life has been marked by tragedy and loss. He is the father of 5 children, 4 daughters, and 1 son, all carrying the creative flame of the Williams legacy. Each took their own musical path from traditional country to modern pop, united by the family's timeless devotion to authenticity. The most prominent among them is Shelton Hank Williams III, known to fans as Hank III. Bearing his father's rugged looks but forging his own sound, Hank III merges country with punk rock, a raw, defiant blend critics once called the most honest, distorted reflection of the Williams lineage. His daughters Holly Hillary and Sam have also built careers in music, each with a distinctive style. None seek to become the next legend, but rather to preserve the family's true essence, heartfelt music free of pretense. But heartbreak found its way to the Williams family. In 2020, Hank's 3rd daughter, Catherine Williams Dunning, died in a car accident at the age of 27. The news shattered him completely. A man who had survived a near-fatal fall and countless public storms was finally broken by a grief beyond measure. During the memorial, he didn't speak a word. He just stood silently, cowboy hat clutched in his hand, eyes glistening behind his dark glasses. Afterward, he withdrew from the public eye for months. No performances, no interviews. When he finally returned to the stage the following year, he said only, "Some pain doesn't need words. It just needs a song." Of course, no story of Hank Williams Jr. would be complete without mentioning the darker sides of his fame. Outspoken to the point of volatility, Hank has often stirred media uproar with his blunt political views. A lifelong supporter of the Republican Party, he has appeared at numerous conservative events. But in 2011, controversy erupted after an appearance on Fox News' Fox and Friends. During a brief on-air discussion, Hank compared President Barack Obama to Adolf Hitler, a remark that sent shockwaves through the nation. The backlash was immediate. Within days, ESPN, the network that had featured All My Rowdy Friends Are Coming Over Tonight, as the theme for Monday Night Football for over 20 years, announced the indefinite suspension of the song. The move dealt a serious blow to Hank's public image, not only stripping him of one of his most iconic contracts, but branding him with the label of extreme conservative star. True to his outlaw spirit, Hank refused to apologize. Instead, he fought back through his music, releasing a new song openly criticizing both ESPN and Fox News, doubling down on his beliefs at live shows. A year later, during the Iowa State Fair, he once again took aim at Obama, with fiery remarks reigniting national debate. For most artists, such controversies would have ended a career. For Hank Williams Jr., they only strengthened his legend as America's unrepentant outlaw, a man who speaks his mind, stands his ground, and never compromises. It's the very essence of outlaw country, the code he's lived by his entire life. And when the final lights go out with only the still surface of Springville Lake and the faint scent of bourbon drifting through the pines, one truth remains: Hank Williams Jr. was never just a singer. He is the scar carved into Nashville's map, the gravelly laugh in the storm, the man who turned his entire life into a whiskey-soaked ballad, brilliant and dangerous all at once. Amid the medals, scandals, loss, and wealth, Bocephus still sits there, the keeper of his own legend. And somewhere beyond that old wooden gate, the whispers of Springville still refuse to sleep. If you believe this story deserves to be heard, like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss what comes next. Tell us in the comments, what do you think really happens in Springville on moonless nights? And which legend would you like us to uncover in the next episode? See you in the next video.